Welcome into the latest edition of our Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcast with my partner, Gordon Wittenmyer. I'm David Kaplan. Fair warning, this one might get a little spicy because I'm more than a little angry at how the Cubs have comported themselves on the field and at the trade deadline.
You should be.
We're going to get to it. It's all brought to you by the Illinois Tollway's If Only campaign. We've all said it before. If only I had slowed down. The Illinois Tollway's new campaign is called If Only, and it's a powerful reminder that speeding doesn't just put you at risk. It affects everyone on the road. Every crash leaves someone wishing they'd done things differently. So please, 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 please take the extra time. Slow down. Save lives, lives including yours. Depend on it. All right, Gordon. We'll get to the deadline in a minute because that's come and freaking gone. But the Cubs have been struggling mightily at the plate. Bullpen hasn't been great as of late. But at the plate, get this, since July 1st, Kyle Tucker, just against fastballs, is hitting 158. 158 and looks overmatched. He's had one home run in a month.
Hey, add all the rest of the pitches in, too. It doesn't get much prettier.
No. Seiya Suzuki, he looks absolutely feeble at the plate. Pete Crow Armstrong does not look like the same guy, nor does Michael Busch. In fact, the top six, and if you count Michael Busch coming in for Justin Turner last night as 7, they were 1 for 20 freaking 1. 1 for 21. Absolutely a train wreck offensively.
What does that tell you, Cap? I think I know what it tells me. But what does it tell you based on what we talked about, even in the offseason, going in when they got Kyle Tucker?
What it tells me is that they needed to do something more at the deadline. They didn't want to pay the price to get Eugenio Suarez. There were other guys to be had, and their big move, Willie Castro, I'm glad to have him. He's a nice depth piece to have. But guess what? Other than that, what did they really do, Gordon? So let's talk about the offense first. What in the H is going on?
I'm gonna back up just a little bit because what the Kyle Tucker numbers tell me and what the overall offensive numbers tell me in a similar time frame is exactly what I thought coming into the season. That acquisition of Kyle Tucker and the hitter that he has been in his career was that big. He has that kind of an impact on the rest of the lineup when he's hitting at that all-star MVP candidate level. That's what a left-handed bat, a big left-handed bat with power and on-base ability does for you. So when he's not doing that at a remarkably lower level than typical, then this is what you see as a ripple effect in the lineup, just the way he had the opposite ripple effect when he was doing so well. So it's not a huge surprise to me. It's a little bit of a surprise that they went that far in the tank in that period of time, but not a surprise to me that the entire lineup would dip even fairly substantially. So really the thing is, like, if you can't get Kyle Tucker right down the stretch, you might not get your offense right down the stretch, even if they had picked up Eugenio Suarez.
Okay, so Kyle Tucker, as I just said to you, is really struggling. I do not believe he's healthy. There is no way that he looks healthy. I don't know if it's the finger when he was sliding into second. I don't know if it's something else we're not being told, but there's no way he's healthy. But let's leave him to the side. Why is Seiya Suzuki look so overmatched? And then last night, you need a run like a starving man needs a freaking sandwich. And guess what? He's got a 3-2 pitch that's clearly up here, and he gets blown away at 97 rather than take the pitch and get on first base. Why does he look so lost at the plate?
We've seen glimpses of this in the past where he can be a streaky hitter at times. And I think that's probably what's happening here. I also think when you have the team's not playing well, we know that. The team's not hitting well in particular, we know that. And the Brewers have caught them. So there's going to be guys when Kyle Tucker's not going well and the big boys in the upper parts of the order aren't getting the job done. A guy like Suzuki, who has been an all-star looking type player at times and was in the first half this year, might try to do too much. And that could be part of what we're seeing. I don't think that all this stuff's going to last. I just wonder if it's going to be too little too late when they pull out of it, because as you already alluded to, that trade deadline looked like hell. That was just embarrassing in my mind for what the Chicago freaking Cubs should be and should have done.
Completely agree. So last night, Gordon, we'll get to the deadline in a second. It's related. I'm watching the game, and I'm jacked up to see how Mike Soroka pitches. I thought, this is a game you got to get. You got to get it. You're at home. And when Lodolo goes out with a blister that's probably going to send him to the IL, I'm thinking, okay, you should be okay here. Well, Mike Soroka, oh, my arm. Oh, I can't come back out. He's done after 2 innings. And so I grab my phone and I've learned to use AI. Everyone here at the recap laughs at me.
What the fuck you do? Excuse me. What the hell are you doing using AI? Come on, man.
It's the greatest. And
it's unreliable, and it's going to take over the fucking world. The effing world someday.
It is. They're going to be like, yeah, who's the beat writer covering the Cubs? It's going to be Grok or ChatGPT.
Don't be getting all. No, don't do it. Don't enable those guys.
So I said,
better than that.
So I'm watching the game, and Soroka's out. So I said, hey, Grok, what do you think about the injury history of Mike Soroka of the Chicago Cubs? And here's what it said. Michael Soroka's had some tough injuries, including tearing his right Achilles tendon twice, which sidelined him for nearly all of the 21 and 22 seasons. He also dealt with a shoulder issue, a hamstring problem, and forearm inflammation that ended his 2023 season early. So I go back and I said, well, Grok, do you think he'd be a good risk for the Chicago Cubs? Michael Soroka's injury history is a real concern. They go through the injuries. That's a lot for a 28-year-old pitcher whose recent stats do show decent control, a 3.32 expected ERA, and a 25.4% strikeout rate. But his body has been unreliable. The Cubs' strong defense could help him, but trading for him feels like a gamble. If they're looking for stability, Michael Soroka's track record screams risk. If freaking Grok knows that sitting on my couch, what are the Cubs doing if you took him as a flyer on the side, but you got Charlie Morton or Merrill Kelly? There were a few guys moved, Chris Paddock. What is going on there, Gordon? I'm furious.
Well, I will say this. I think Tom Ricketts could have probably got Grok to run his team a little cheaper than that Jed extension, and maybe he'd have been better off at least through the trade deadline period doing that, because I think that's exactly right. Not only that, Cap, never mind what Grok or AI or you know Joe Schmo on the next Barstool says. He had an MRI, a precautionary MRI, not long before the trade because his velocity was down, and the idea was to rule out injury or precaution and all that. But I don't think you get that if you're feeling top notch. I don't think you do that just because the metrics say that, or maybe it was to show teams the medicals before the trade deadline. I don't know, but something was going on that they got an MRI, and here one start in, it bites them in the ass. Now, all that said, what are you going and getting Michael Soroka for anyway? What are you working in those shallow waters for anyway at the trade deadline when you're the Cubs? Look, I just wanted to find out where the dates were where things really changed. So on July 19th, the Cubs won. They were 59-39 with the best record in baseball and a 1-game lead on the Brewers. Now the Brewers were coming. They've been playing real well. Since then, they're 6-8. The Brewers have the best record in the game. They had an uninspiring trade deadline. The Brewers, if you count the Andrew Vaughn trade, had a better trade deadline. Even if you don't count that, they didn't make bad moves at the deadline, and they're getting better. The Brewers are 10-4 since then, and they've got a 3-game lead. And all indications are they can sustain this because they have, and they might even get better. So now you're a wild card team. You were You were in the driver's seat, the catbird seat in the National League with resources. These are Cap. You know what I've got two thoughts on this. I'll share one right now with you because otherwise I'll just spend the next half hour talking. But one of them is this kind of reminds me. I was walking into Wrigley Field today and walked past the statues, and I'm gazing at the statue. I'm thinking of Rhino, but I'm looking at the guys that were all on that 69 team, and I'm thinking this is kind of like 69 a little bit. You know, that team was really celebrated. That team was the best team. That team was,
and they ran out of gas because they did nothing to help them.
They did nothing to help themselves, and they kept riding the same horses. And a very young, talented, good Mets team sort of emerged and matured at just the right time to overtake them and wound up winning the World Series. Now, there's apples and oranges involved here with the Mets and the Brewers comparison, and even the two Cubs team comparison. But it just kind of has that feel to it as we go into the last 7 weeks, 7-8 weeks of the season.
Okay, so do you believe, because I have my opinions on it, do you believe that the Cubs' lack of successful moves at the deadline were financially motivated or they were prospect hugging? Because I believe it was the latter, that maybe Jed doesn't believe in this team as much as I do and some others, despite the record. But I think he looked and went, I'm not giving up Jackson Wiggins. He'll be here next year. I'm not giving up Owen Casey. He'll be here next year. Now, the Owen Casey one, you could say, yeah, it is financially motivated because they're not going to pay Kyle Tucker. But right now, the way Kyle Tucker's been playing, I'm not sure I want him. I don't know.
Well, I see two things within this. One of them is maybe they know a little more about Kyle. Well, I'm sure they do, at least a little more about Kyle Tucker's health than they're telling us. And if there's something they think can't be fixed or rectified, compensated for through him, health-wise, between now and the end of the season, that may shift their projections compared to where it was, say, 2 months ago. And by the way, that finger issue that we talk about, that happened in early June 1st, maybe even. And he had a good June. He's just had a terrible July. Makes you wonder, did he aggravate it since then? I don't know. Is there something else going on? I don't know. But see, here's the other thing, Cap. And as I'm watching around baseball, you know, Merrill Kelly, a rental pitcher, I would have loved to seen them pick up him if I'm a fan. I mean, that would have been the move to make of the guys that were moved.
I think Charlie Morton would have really.
It would have helped for sure. I don't mind the Kittredge move. That helps your bullpen. You needed to do more. There's no question you needed to do more if you're the Cubs. But a lot of teams acted similarly, and I got to think in a big picture what that means. You know, honestly, what it means is, yes, it is very much a fiscal thing. Look, back when we were growing up in the game, and really when we were coming up in the business, and even at maybe a decade plus after we started covering baseball, the highest top line accountability issue when you hired somebody to run your baseball department was winning. We want to bring somebody in that knows how to win. We want you to win, and we want you to do it as soon as possible. We're going to sell tickets off that. We're going to make money off that. That's not the case anymore. Making money has less to do with winning per se as a top line feature of your revenue potential, but what they're hiring, and it's, you know, every team's worth more than $1 billion. Tampa Bay, the lowest valued team in baseball, just got sold for $1.7 billion. So we know that they're making money year over year. We know that the revenue potentials are there going forward, even with some of the TV issues going on. And these franchises are massively valuable. So maintaining that value is the top line priority. It's always kind of been, but it's always been assumed over the years that winning was a correlation to that. It's really not the same correlation, Cap. So here's what you've got if you hire or extend Jed Hoyer. You want him to build your organization so that you have a baseline every year, so that you're not becoming the 2024 White Sox ever. But you always want to have a baseline so that you're always within a projectable distance of enticing the fans. and you want a fiscal policy met, whatever that is. Clearly, this looked like a long-term fiscal policy trade deadline for the Cubs. And if you're a fan paying the prices that this group of fans pays, you got a right to be just effing infuriated.
Yeah, I just, again, I don't think it was as much financial as, hey, man, we've got a handful of really elite prospects and we're not giving them up.
Here's how you're going to know that. Here's how you're going to know whether that's the case or not. Look, I just saw, I don't know if it was The Athletic or somebody just did a deep dive over the last decade or 2 decades or whatever on prospects that got traded at the deadline and how well they did for their new teams, their new organizations. Very, very few of them, very low percentage of them panned out. That's just the nature of prospects. And a lot of them are A-ball guys, which are high risk anyway. But the thing you do as an organization, you know your prospects better than anybody else in baseball does. The idea is, yes, you identify the ones that are as close to untouchable as you can, but primarily most of your prospects are trade chips or future trade chips, and the idea is to trade them at their highest value. Owen Casey right now has never had a higher value. Now, if you believe that he's a guy to build around, he has a high strikeout rate, even in the minor leagues, he may be close to a ceiling, just depending on what your valuation is. He might be at his highest value right now as a trade chip and maybe into the offseason. If they trade him in the offseason, then that's what they believe, that he's at his highest value now. And if that happens, we'll know that it's not because they're prospect hugging. It's because they're making these player valuation economic decision. By economics, I mean the economics of the skill sets and trying to leverage them. And that's all about long-term organization building and fiscal policy as well. And that would just be, man, aggravating as hell if I continue to pay higher prices for merch and tickets and marquee and everything else.
So the moves that they made, they went and got the lefty from the Pirates, and they've only used him when they've been losing, I think. He's pitched in 2 games since he came over.
That's the guy from the Reds. And by the way, that's all you need to know. The Reds, he was a candidate to be released at some point if they hadn't traded him in the Pirates deal, and then he gets flipped to the Cubs.
Yeah, that just pumps me full of confidence. Michael Soroka, Willie Castro, as I said to you a little bit ago, really liked that move. That was a solid pickup, for as a utility guy. And then Andrew Kittredge, who I do like and I do hear good reports on. But I want to know, does Jed and his front office not believe this team is as good as their record? And so that's why they didn't push their chips in, or they just weren't going to give up what it took to get, let's call him Joan Duran from the Minnesota Twins, who is pitching in Philly with this electric intro, and they've got that buzz around the Phillies is like what I watched in 2016 when Chapman came to the Cubs.
If I'm a Phillies fan, I'm loving it. If I'm a Phillies fan, I'm loving it for the last however many years Dave Dombrowski's been there, because that guy understands the value of star power in winning. And all they've done has been a threat to win the World Series pretty much ever since he's got there. And with exciting players to watch too. And one of them we know very well from being in Chicago, obviously Kyle Schwarber, but Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, JT Realmuto, and a pitching staff of $100 million pitchers, including maybe the best one going in the game right now, who doesn't always get credit for it, Zach Wheeler. So, man, you got to love it if you're a Phillies fan, and you got to be sitting here in Chicago as a Cubs fan thinking, why the hell can't that be us?
Right.
Why can't, I know you think that way, right? And
Gordon, I was irate. I was watching the trade deadline show that Ryan McGuffey hosted here on our channel, and I'm listening to Guff like he's playing pinball. He's like, oh, this guy's going there. This guy's going there. I keep waiting. I'm like, hey, Guff, how about a little love for the Cubs? Are we not covering anything they're doing? And I'm like, what is going on here? And finally he goes, oh, the Cubs got, Andrew Kittredge or Taylor Rogers or Willie Castro or Mike Soroka. That's it. I'm like, that's it? Gordon, it is beyond insanity that we packed that ballpark, that we have an amazing fan base, and they decided to not push their chips in to a degree. I was told on the Mackenzie Gore, Joe Ryan front, it was Matt Shaw, Cade Horton, Owen Casey, and a lower level prospect. Okay, I'm not doing that. That's insane. But why couldn't you get Charlie Morton?
Go get the rent-a-guys then. If that's what it's a cost of doing business, right? Okay, the market isn't there for the McKenzies. He didn't get moved. So that tells us that price was maybe high for the entire industry. I get it. But the guys that did get moved, we know what the price was. And that price is the cost of doing business. And if you're the Cubs, you should be paying that price because if for no other reason, right now in 2025, you got a chance to win and you owe it to the fans after the last bunch of years here.
Completely agree. And the price that Seattle paid for Eugenio Suarez, let me tell you something. The Cubs could have easily matched that.
Easily. That. Yes. And by the way, they have a relationship with that front office. So it's not like they were going to get, gouged on the price, or that there was somebody that didn't want to trade with them or work with them.
Yeah, very, very disappointing. Before I let you go, Cubs and Reds tonight here. We're taping on Tuesday. Cubs coming off a 3-2 loss on Monday night in a game they should have won. They had every chance to win. You get an error from Ian Happ. You get a missed base from Dansby Swanson on a game-tying ground ball. And he also booted a ball. And then Tucker and PC. I told you, top 7 if you count Bush coming into the game and Turner coming out. 1 for 21. Embarrassing offensive performance. Tonight, it's Zach Littell, who the Reds got
going on there too
from Tampa, and the Cubs are going with their ace, Shota Imanaga. So we'll see. For me, this is as big a game as they've played in a long time.
I'll tell you one thing to look for as a subplot on this. Zach Littell. That's the guy that the Reds got. That's the big guy that the Reds got. Yeah. He's having a good year as a starter. That's a guy the Cubs could have gotten. He would have helped him because he's been a swingman in his career, and he's having a good year as a starter, 350-something ERA. They could have had, they could have gone after that guy. I don't know if they get him instead of the Reds or not, but the Reds got him. Now he's going to face the Cubs. Watch how he does, and then maybe compare it to Soroka. I'm not here to say he's going to light up the world, but if that's a good move for the Reds, then – and I think this is already the case, then they certainly had a better trade deadline than the Cubs did.
Yeah, we'll watch it tonight.
I would suggest the Brewers did too, if you count Andrew Vaughn. And they picked up Danny Jansen, the catcher.
And Shelby Miller.
So they were already kind of emerging and maturing and getting better, and they added a little bit to that. It's just around the edges to maybe help some depth. There were only 3 teams in the division buying. And the Cubs, in my mind, finished 3rd. And if you want to see by how far, keep an eye on Zach Littell in this very important game for both teams.
Yeah, Griffin Jacks would have looked awfully nice, too, in the Cubs bullpen. Instead, he's pitching down in Tampa, who was trading guys away as well. Hey, the Illinois Tollways If Only campaign. It's a very serious topic. We've said it before. If only I had slowed down. The Illinois Tollways' new campaign is called If Only, and it's a powerful reminder. Speeding doesn't just put you at risk. It affects everyone on the road. Every crash leaves someone wishing they'd done things differently. So take the extra time. Slow down, save lives. Lives, including yours, depend on it. Gordon, enjoy the game tonight at Wrigley. I will be pacing in my family room.
Sure you will.
If they lose tonight, man, oh, God.
I hope you got some chill pills or some good wine with you to take the edge off, pal.
Yeah, I've got a nice bottle of Cab I'm going to have with dinner tonight. I'll be ready to roll. Gordon, have a great day, man.
All right, you too.
Appreciate you. There he is. That's my partner. That's Gordon Wittenmyer. He's at Wrigley for Cubs and Reds. And this has been the latest edition of our Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcast. Get it done tonight, Cubbies! Beat the Reds. We'll see you next week. Take that. All right, here's the tease. 3, 2, and 1. On the latest edition of our Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcast, Gordon Wittenmyer and I discuss the Cubs' failures at the deadline, the ill-fated trade for Mike Soroka, who's now on the IL, and where the heck is the offense gone?